At the very outset of this video, I'd like to make clear that I've got no affiliations with The Sun whatsoever. I'm not paid by The Sun, contracted by The Sun, or in any way affiliated by The Sun. They haven't asked me to talk about this or anything else of that nature. But in a roundabout way, what I say is really to defend The Sun, in the sense that they are obviously writing catchy headlines, and even to the degree where the presenter was not named, to say that there could be criminal charges if certain things were found to be the case. But that was not the same as The Sun making an allegation of criminality, which is what has been put out online, at least in certain threads that I've read just recently. Now, for The Sun to put up a fairly explosive headline, that is obviously what it does. It's to grab attention. People criticize and complain about clickbait, but that's exactly what news articles and headlines and here on YouTube thumbnails and titles have always done. The old adage, read all about it, is probably one of the earliest form of clickbait known to mankind. Now, someone obviously will correct me, because there are lots of people whose job it is to spend hours finding every little thing that anyone ever does wrong and correct us for it. So I await those comments for the very earliest form of clickbait. So I very much enjoy those times looking at those things. But in terms of the Sun article, it simply aired what it had from a source, that there was a presenter. And now lots of people have said, well, the Sun may be at risk of defamation. Well, yes, of course, there's always a risk of defamation. However, there's no real risk here. For a second take on this, check out our Art of Law channel with Alan Robertshaw. I'll link that video in the description below. But as he said there, a presenter of the BBC is one of a group of many people. So it's far too broad and far too vague for it to name specifically any one person. And that person wasn't named until he was named by his own wife in a very specific statement to outline what they say had happened. And coincidentally, it came out alongside the Met Police statement to say that there was no findings of criminality there and no further police investigations. And the BBC was then left to do its own investigation internally, which, as I reported on yesterday, in my video yesterday. But back to The Sun once more. For defamation to be a serious thing, now I've recently had to remind others via the YouTube complaints system that you can be defamatory on YouTube and have your videos taken down. And it's sort of a 3 strikes and you're out kind of thing, because it's against the community guidelines. When people put up videos on YouTube, you're expected to comply with those community guidelines. That's why it can't be so extreme in nature and so insulting and critical in nature that it goes outside of those guidelines. It can have a certain sort of tongue-in-cheek critique and parody and pastiche, and obviously bringing the news on certain things that might be a bit edgy is all pretty much fine and on par. But when somebody is accusing somebody else of being fraudulent and making fraudulent misrepresentations, that is a defamatory statement. It's also malicious falsehood, and it could be considered malicious communication, even if it's on YouTube to somebody else, but with the intent which can be easily shown that someone else is supposed to see it, it can be considered a malicious falsehood, which is a crime. But back to The Sun, because none of that is obviously to do with The Sun. Back to The Sun. The Sun was writing an article with a headline designed to grab attention. Yes, shock, horror, these headlines are designed to grab attention. Much like my thumbnails, believe it or not, are designed to grab your attention. The whole point with headlines, and I'll use YouTube as the analogy for thumbnails, is to grab your attention. I've seen comments before now, such as, "You're just doing this to get views." Well, yes, it's YouTube. It's a platform that runs on views. I'm certainly not doing it to get 0 views. Otherwise, that would be a monumental waste of time. Just as The Sun publishing an article that gets 0 views and reads would be a waste of time. So obviously, it has to have a clickbaity sort of title, which is with as much information as they can from the source that they have, but without crossing the bounds of legality in defamation. Now, sure, many a newspaper has been sued before now, successfully on occasion, because they've crossed those boundaries, either because it was a risk worth taking at the time, or a calculated risk they thought was okay, and they fell on the wrong side. But in this case, twofold. First of all, The Sun did not name the presenter at the outset, because that would obviously have been far too risky, and subsequently has said that it's not going to publish any further allegations, even though I've read that there are further allegations. But The Sun has confirmed that it's not going to publish those. I, for one, think that is an admirable thing to do, even though it could probably, well, sell more newspapers or however they make money online these days, adverts and advertising and all that sort of stuff. But the point is, whilst some people may still hold a critique of The Sun for running that story in the first place, remember it's a newspaper, because on occasion I hear various criticisms of newspapers, journalists, YouTube channels. One of my favourite quotes from the last year or so was about Charlie Veitch. I will obviously now tag him now that his name has come up again and ping him a message to that effect. Somebody said, "I don't like Charlie Veitch because he walks around filming things and talking about them." And I thought, how different is that from a news company? That is exactly what news companies do. Yes, okay, there is a difference in that most news companies abide by certain regulations and maintain a perfectly neutral stance and everything else, which, Charlie Veitch is not obligated to follow. For more on those rules, better explained by Al on The Art of Law, linked in the description below. But as for Charlie Veitch, and even myself, if I express an opinion, which I'm free to do so. Now, believe it or not, some people think that I'm not entitled to express an opinion because I'm a barrister. But of course I can express an opinion. In fact, years ago, we were not permitted to comment on a case that we were involved with. But now, not only can we comment on the case, but we can provide an opinion on that case. But the rules do providing that you're not being dishonest, you're not misleading, you're not being unnecessarily disparaging and rude and bringing the profession into disrepute, it's certainly fine to express an opinion. Many barristers get critiqued, especially on Twitter, for airing their opinions and thoughts in the strongest of terms. But to those people, I would say, remember that an advocate is going to put across an opinion, an argument, a point of view, just like a newspaper is putting across a story. So whether it's a newspaper or a barrister putting across a story or an opinion or a legal argument, remember that. You may not agree with the argument, we may not agree with the argument. Many barristers making an argument may not agree with that argument, and not every argument is absolutely slam dunk. Some people say, this barrister, many barristers lose or something. But of course, because if a case goes to court, you can look at it, I don't like to think of it this way, but you could look at it as one barrister wins and the other barrister loses, as in one side wins and the other side loses. And so one argument has won and the other argument has lost. But even in the very top cases, you will have very senior King's Counsel putting arguments across that ultimately fail, and the court prefers the other side's arguments. That doesn't mean the barrister wasn't very good. It doesn't mean the arguments weren't very good. It just means that on that occasion, in that particular scenario and set of facts, the court sided with one over the other. And so when you read these stories about the news companies and the journalists putting these stories out, remember that they are stories. And in this case, they hadn't named the presenter at the outset, so they were avoiding that risk of defamation because the group was too large. If there was a group of, let's say, 3 people doing a certain thing in a certain place, and somebody said that group are all fraudulent, then clearly it's easy to tell who the group is. And if you're saying they're all fraudulent, that would be defamatory. And so, as certain people may have recently become aware, certain things can be defamatory, which can have certain consequences in certain ways and could land you in the High Court with a serious award against you for damages. So I hope you found that interesting. Do follow on and check out Al's video on our Art of Law channel, and I'll see you over there very soon. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you next time.